Why we're surrounded by.
Hey everybody, welcome. This is the the big market update, technically, even though we're not talking about market stuff today. Mohammed here with the rest of the team. Go ahead, jump in, guys.
Hey, it's Marty. What's
Ebony,
up?
I knew that was gonna happen.
So one of the reasons why we're a little bit awkward this morning is not necessarily because we don't know what we're doing, and in my case, didn't get any sleep last night, but we were having a conversation before this. We were like, all right, we need to carry this conversation over into the market update. We're talking about appraisals, particularly, and how appraisals mysteriously tend to come in light in predominantly neighborhoods of color. I had a recent issue over the weekend with an appraisal that for a property we had under contract. We had a contract price of $25,000 above asking, and the appraisal came back light. In my opinion, there's no reason why the appraisal should have come back light, because in that same community, there are properties within walking distance. When I say walking distance, I mean down the block and around the corner in the community that have sold for more. So having the appraisal come back light was a bit of a surprise. However, I talked to a neighbor who was listing agent who was selling a neighbor's property 3 doors down, and that listing agent informed me that their property, the appraisal came back light as well, and the appraiser did not look at the comps in the neighborhood. He went to comps outside of the neighborhood to compare and came back $12,000 below asking. And that might not seem like a lot, but that makes a big difference. And one of the reasons why our appraisal was impacted is because the comp for the neighbor's house was low. And that was one of the comps that our appraiser used for our house, which brought down our value. So I don't have an issue with the way our appraiser did the comp, because he pulled from the neighborhood. He took the neighbor who was 3 or 4 doors down, another neighbor was 3 or 4 doors down, another neighbor around the corner. No issue. I have an issue with some of the properties because I felt like he could have used other properties that were in the neighborhood that sold for more. But generally speaking, with his methodology, I can't argue with that. And the numbers are where they are. And it was one of those situations where the discrepancy was not vast enough to require fighting. It'd be very difficult to fight it because we're talking a few $1,000s. Now, keep in mind, in the case of my clients, overall, that didn't make a difference. But think about the cascading effect that has, and also think about somebody who really does need that few $1,000s, and they're losing that value because of an appraisal. And one of the comps is being used was deliberately undervalued. And it's something that we see a lot happening in neighborhoods of color. I've been in places and areas in DC, Washington, DC, and Montgomery County, and I've told to myself, there's no way that property is going to appraise. Not only did it appraise, it might appraise for more, but in areas like Prince George's County and Baltimore, houses that should appraise are having appraisal issues. So that's really sparked this conversation about how neighborhoods of color get devalued. And Ebony rightfully said, well, we have this conversation, we're going to piss some people off. And my response was like, so what? Like, this is a conversation that needs to be had. There was a recent article, I believe it was in the New York Times, about a couple in California, I think it was. I have to go back and find an article. We posted to our socials. You can find us, the Bates International Group, across all social media platforms. And I'll look up the article and find it and post it. And if I don't, somebody just ping me and remind me, like, say, hey, you said you were going to do this, but you didn't. I get busy. I forget. So just don't hold that against me. But this is a couple who literally had their house devalued by hundreds of thousands of dollars by an appraiser, had to fight it, and then restaged their house, took all of their pictures out and got one of their white neighbors and put their pictures in the house. And the house was appraised for hundreds of thousands of dollars more. So whether this is deliberate, whether this is subconscious bias, doesn't matter. Like, this is an issue, and this is something that needs to be addressed. And it's something that I encourage everyone here. If you feel like your appraisal was light, fight it, fight it, fight it.
Yeah, I mean, And I would say, yeah, it may piss people off, but pissing people off is sort of a pastime of mine. Just want to let you all know that where I'm coming from. And the other part is that I'm not afraid to say that this is something that I've been saying for a long time. And I especially see this happen in Baltimore, and it has come up, in neighborhoods where it is predominantly Black. Now you can say, it's coincidence or, call it whatever you want to call it, but it's happening and its impact is real. The case in Baltimore, the appraisal, it was $100,000 home. And you can get a home in Baltimore, for that price. And this was an actual family, a mother and daughter who was moving into this home. And they were spending pretty much all of their savings to get into this home of $100,000. And the appraisal came back at 95,000. Well, if you're a seller and your house is worth 100,000, then obviously you probably don't have a lot of money either. So even though it was 5,000 off, the deal did fall apart. And so now you've got a situation where, and to talk about that cascading effect, it's now you've got, people who are housebroken now and, don't have a safe place. And on top of that, have spent their savings. On the flip side, we've had homes, in Virginia and DC that have appraised 100, where we have an asking price. And this is a true story where we literally sold $125,000 over the asking price, and the appraisal still came back without an issue. And so you just don't, there's a disparity that is hard to ignore. And as I've told my clients in the past, the way I describe it is the invisible hand. And when we talk about discrimination, and whenever people say, well, it's hard to see. Well, this is an example of it. This is a personification of that invisible hand that is holding some folks down and has been for a really long time.
Absolutely. And most recent case this weekend, we're looking at a difference of essentially $15,000 that my clients would have been able to generate if the appraisal had come back at or above, the contract price. Now, for my clients, we listed the property at a certain price and we were above that price. So they were able to meet their margins. They were able to net based on where we were, the escalation clause, as well as some other maneuverings within the contract. They were able to get their net, what they were looking to net in the deal. So they're walking away. But even though they got their net, if this appraisal had come back clean, they would have had their net plus 15 grand. So think about that as equity, as profit, as whatever that they could have been able to reinvest and do other things with, and this lost financial opportunity because of this appraisal.
But it also, yes, that, and it also, to use your term, has that cascading effect where the property values in the neighborhood should be increasing.
And they're not.
They're now volatile, and they're in essence decreasing, comparatively so, because you have these other neighborhoods where that house appraised when it was 125,000 over asking. That's now a legitimate comp for someone who wants to list their home.
That's bringing up the neighborhood.
And that's where you see the strategy, at least on, when you're coming from the seller's side. I know I've done it before where, you meet the appraiser out there with comps that you've pulled to try to not sway, but, let them know, hey, we've done our homework. This is what we're seeing. And, we'd like you to take this into consideration as you do your appraisal and your report. To your point, Mohammed, to try to ensure that you're meeting the mark and don't have these discrepancies. Again, at least from coming from the seller side and supporting the seller and getting the transaction done.
You know, and keep in mind too, when appraisals are done, the appraiser is going through a very similar process that we go through as realtors when we do a market analysis. You know, they list out things a bit more detailed than we do, but when we do a market analysis, our market analysis can be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 pages of data supporting why it is we believe that this property is worth X amount of dollars. So when we put this together, we're not just pulling numbers out the sky. These are not fictitious numbers or an analysis. This is a legitimate analysis. And generally speaking, and Ebony can attest to this because I pride myself on this, I'm always damn close when it comes to the appraisal. I'm within, you know, a few $100 at the most, $1,000, and I've called it any number of times as far as what a property is worth. So we're utilizing the same skill set, and the fact that this is in these cases in these neighborhoods are so far off, I find it to be extremely disturbing in the fact that it's impacting populations that can least afford to be impacted in this way.
Yeah, 100%, you know, so continue to educate yourself, continue to follow us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on our social media accounts, and our, you know, come to our website. Our website is actually getting revamped, which is really nice. So check that out. We're always coming to you every week, at least, with a new update, and we're going to be having our roundtable coming up in September. It's going to be on the 2nd of September, so join us then. Anybody else have anything to say before we jump off?
No, final words. If you do not like the way the appraisal came out, fight it, fight it, fight it. You can appeal the appraisal. I encourage everyone to do that if that appraisal is significantly off. If it's only off by a little bit, the likelihood of getting that adjusted is pretty slim. But if it's significantly off and you can prove that the appraiser exhibited some form of malpractice, bias, or just didn't know what the heck he was doing, fight
off day.
Yeah, he could have just had it. He didn't have a Starbucks that morning.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah.
you know, fight it, fight it, fight it.
Yeah, and to Marty's point, the takeaway is get involved early, and if you're a consumer, ask your realtor to get those comps over to the appraiser. And if you're a realtor on either side, make sure you're doing your diligence, and let's help each other to make sure that our clients are protected and their assets are protected by providing comps to the appraisers.
All right. Thanks for your time, everybody. See you next time.
Peace.
Why